Hello guys, welcome to another lesson in programming. In this lesson we are going to continue with data types, and we are going to look at continue with variables and allocating different data types to them. In the previous program we had this program that we wrote to find the sum of two numbers and display the result on the console. So here I'm going to modify the program such that we can actually get the average of three terms averages, or maybe an annual average at the end of the school year. So best practice, I'm going to remove this code again. Let's do it all over, and I'm going to start at the level of variable declaration. So at this time I'm going to, since averages are always decimals, I'm going to use a new data type here called float. So I can call it float. Sorry, it needs to always be in small letters. So we can call it float average term 1, float average term 2, float average term 3. Then we have float, we have annual average. You see that's the difference, which will be the average of the three terms averages. So I've used float throughout. So I'm going to also use let's continue with something simple. So I'm going to ask the user to enter first term average and we'll read it. So we have percentage f, comma, ampersand, a, vg, t1. So we have something like that. So we can test and see how it looks like. So you ask us to enter the first term average, maybe at 18.50. So we can proceed. So now we want the three terms averages. So I'm going to copy this and I'll paste it 3 times, and I'll change this to T2. I'm going to change this to T3. Then I'm going to look for the annual average. The annual average is equal to, I'm going to look for the sum of the three terms averages divided by 3 plus divided by 3.0, and that is it. So now we cannot display the annual average. The annual average is percentage f. So we are using percentage f since we are dealing with floating point, and I want the annual average to be in 2 decimal places. So I use 0.2f, comma, a, vg, semicolon. So now I can run the program. The annual average is, we take note, AAVG, Udzibok. Oh, I forgot to put a semicolon on line 21, so I can run it. So they asked me to enter my first term average at 18.5. Enter, let's correct the sentence, enter the second term average, enter the third. So I can run. So I had maybe 18.5, second term average 17.5, third term average 19.5, and the annual average is 18.50. So this program gets the three terms averages for a particular student and computes the annual average and then displays the annual average. So here you see in the previous program I was using integers, now I'm using float. So if we want to store decimals, we use float as data types. If we want to store integers, we use int as data type. Now we could equally add a variable where I can call it a string. So I can say character name, and I put the size. Maybe that name, the length of that name is maybe 20 characters. No, let's put 15. Okay. Then we'll ask the user to enter, or the student to enter the name. So I use a printf statement. We'll say enter. Okay, we can say welcome. What is your name? And the user is going to enter the name. So I'm going to use %s since it's a string of characters, and I'm going to use name. Then at this level I can say the annual average for, I want the name to appear, is, so you see that I'm using, so this is a string, so this is how we declare a string in programming, and that's the size. Let's run it. Omitted paste. Be very careful with how you end the program. So first question, welcome, what is your name? I want it to appear on a new line, so I make sure I put \n here. So I run. Okay, what is your name? My name is Eric. Enter your first term average, I had 18.5. Enter the second term average, I had 18.00. And the last I had 18.56. So the annual average for, so you see, so we need to correct. So I intentionally did this so that you see some of the errors that can appear. You know, the annual average for nil is this. So we need to come to that line and check what is the error. So we do not declare the variable there, name. So make sure I put the name first before we come to that. So we'll test again. So I'm called Eric, 18.0, 17.5, 18.5. So the annual average for Eric is 18.00. So you saw that long error message we saw was because we do not actually indicate the variable. So we asked the program to call the variable, and we're supposed to indicate the variable. And take note the order in which I've written the variables. So the name should appear before the average. If I reverse the order, we are going to have a problem. So in this program, my dear students, we have seen how to use another two kinds of data type. I've used a character, which is a string, which means if I wanted to store maybe gender, or let me just modify it. I got just character, we have gender, something like that. Then I'll ask the user to enter the name and enter the gender. So I'll say print, welcome, what is your gender? Okay, I'll use what %c and gender. So you see that I'm using the difference between %s and %c. So we'll run the program. So we'll look at our console. What is your name? My name is Eric. Welcome, what is your gender? So we need to make sure the program runs smoothly. Okay, so basically you see that it runs like that. What is your gender? Male. We have a small error there. So I just wanted you to see the difference between the declaration of a string and a character. So you see, in our previous programs, I'm going to actually use data that makes use of these different data types. So in this program, we have written a program that calculates the average of a particular student, prints the name of the student and the annual average. And we can now see that when we're progressing, we're going to go into decision making, where we can now take decision based on the average. So we have seen further how we can use different data types, and we take note when you are dividing floating point or even integers, you have to divide by a decimal, a floating point number, because the average of integers can become a floating point. So it's always good to be prudent to put this. Now, I still go back to debugging. It is very important for students to understand the syntax in programming such that they don't make errors when they're compiling their code. Make sure that code ends with semicolon, the commas are respected, the symbols that are used, inverted commas, open and close, percentage %F, percentage %S, know when to use them. So in our next lesson, we are going to continue with other primitive data types in computer programming. Stay tuned and see you in the next lesson.